"Turn around right now," my husband Jake shouted. I chose to listen to him, and it changed everything. We were driving to my cousin's wedding in Tennessee when Jake's voice sliced through our road trip playlist. "Pull over now," he said, his tone deadly serious. I looked at him, puzzled. "What? We need to get off this highway immediately." He sounded nothing like himself. My husband Jake isn't someone who panics easily. He's the guy who once caught our falling Christmas tree barehanded while balancing our newborn.com as ice. But something in his expression told me this wasn't a request. It was urgent. I guided our minivan toward the exit ramp, the final one. Before entering Kentucky, the off-ramp curved away from the interstate like it was offering me an escape I didn't realize I desperately needed. The second we left the main highway, I noticed his body relax. Just slightly, but enough for me too. See, he'd been preparing for something terrible. "Jake," I said. "What's happening?" "Not now," he answered. "Drive somewhere else." The twins in the back seat suddenly paid attention to our route change. Both girls, ages 7 and 9, had been switching between watching movies on their tablets, and their typical "she's looking at me" squabbles. "Did we take a wrong turn?" my older daughter asked. "We left something behind," I said quickly. "What did we leave?" My younger one wondered. "Sandwiches," I lied smoothly. We drove quietly for almost 30 minutes, surrounded by endless oak trees and the lingering scent of morning dew still hanging in the air. My palms were damp against the steering wheel. Eventually, Jake said, "Turn there." The path he indicated wasn't actually a street, more like a forgotten logging trail with no markers and no reason for regular traffic. I stopped the car. "Wait here," he said, opening his door. I watched him walk toward the rear of the minivan. From my seat, I couldn't see his actions, but I heard the distinct sound of our tailgate lifting. My pulse felt thick in my throat, like my instincts understood something before my brain caught up. Moments later, he appeared beside my window. "I need you to see this." His voice wasn't frightened anymore. It was something worse. Steady, resolved. The kind of tone people use when they've grasped a horrible truth before you have stepped out. He guided me to the back and raised the hatch. Initially, I couldn't process what I was seeing. Then reality hit, and everything felt unsteady. There in our cargo area, squeezed between our suitcase and the girls' backpacks, sat a large black gym bag we hadn't packed. Jake unzipped it partially and moved aside a jacket to expose something wrapped in heavy plastic. Not just one bundle, several stacked together like someone believed a few clothes could conceal them from anyone looking closely. It wasn't medication, wasn't anything you could justify with a doctor's note. I backed away. "Someone planted that in our vehicle," I whispered, my voice shaking. He agreed with a nod. "With our daughters inside." Another nod confirmed my worst fear as I stared at that gym bag. This wasn't simply careless, it was calculated. And I knew precisely which two individuals would orchestrate this without hesitation. My parents. I spent my childhood believing that being reliable was my defining trait. I handled my responsibilities, kept my word, and offered assistance when possible. But in my household, being responsible didn't equal security. It meant catching people who kept making dangerous choices. My parents, Robert and Linda, were experts at maintaining appearances. For them, success wasn't about genuine stability. It was about convincing everyone else you had it. If the driveway was freshly sealed, if the holiday lights were picture perfect, if the pantry was filled with organic snacks and fancy coffee, then everything was wonderful. Never mind the overdue mortgage payments or the credit cards maxed out. From impulse purchases, that was their story. Follow the script or get cut from the show. During lean times, we'd survive on ramen noodles while one parent worked overtime. A code phrase I later understood meant hiding from bill collectors. When cash was abundant, there were new gadgets, designer clothes, and patio furniture nobody ever used. Planning ahead wasn't my father's style. His motto was, "Why plan when you can wing it?" I was 10 when I first heard him say that. My brother, Tyler, got their charm. He could enter any space and command attention effortlessly. Everyone loved him, especially our parents. He was clearly the golden child. Nobody even tried to hide it. I was the dull one, the one who picked safety over excitement. During one family dinner, my mother actually announced to everyone that I confused being careful with having character. The terrible part was, I accepted it. Because growing up in a home like ours, affection feels earned. You get it by remaining helpful and compliant. So I became the problem solver. I handled their tax documents, managed school communications, and sometimes provided loans when Tyler lost yet another position. I never gave too much, just enough to prevent total disaster, which meant just enough to ensure they'd return for more. Then, roughly 4 months before the wedding, Tyler contacted me about his daughter, my niece. He explained she was struggling at her current school, facing harassment, feeling stressed, falling behind academically. A counselor had recommended a specialized, supportive private institution. The cost was enormous. They couldn't afford it, but he claimed she'd already been provisionally admitted. If they could manage the enrollment fee, it would transform her future, he pleaded. I genuinely cared about my niece. I wanted her to feel secure, but I also recognized this familiar pattern. They'd borrow money, never return it, and eventually twist the narrative to make me the villain who abandoned them. So I declined. I can't fund private education, I explained kindly. We use public schools for our children, and I can't afford private tuition for yours. The conversation turned. I scolded immediately. My mother called the following day with, "Right, I forgot. You have your principals?" We didn't communicate again until the wedding invitation arrived. Suddenly, everyone was friendly and upbeat. They'd resolved everything, they announced. The school situation, the celebration, all of it. 3 days before our trip, my father requested if we could transport an additional bag in our minivan since their car was completely packed. Absolutely, I agreed. No trouble at all. The morning of the wedding, he gave me a black gym bag. I placed it in our cargo area without thinking. No questions, no careful examination. That's how an hour later, Jake and I found ourselves stopped on an abandoned service road looking at packages that could have ruined our lives. I couldn't stop staring at that gym bag. The packages were vacuum sealed, compressed between hoodies and sweatpants like someone thought fabric layers would make them undetectable. Jake closed the bag and let the quiet speak volumes. They expected this to pass inspection, I said slowly, as if voicing it would make the madness more concrete. And they wanted us as their delivery service. Jake responded, his expression hardening. With our daughters watching movies in the back seat, I breathed. He didn't need to respond. He stood there briefly, the forest silent around us as reality settled in. This wasn't about poor judgment. It was about my parents risking our freedom, our safety, and our children's futures, all without any consideration. "Let's go," I said finally. My voice sounded harsher than intended. We drove without any plan, just away. Highways, country roads, small community streets that didn't even have posted names. My phone began ringing before we'd traveled 15 miles, first my mother, then my father, then both repeatedly, their contacts appearing like warning signals on my screen. We ignored every call. Eventually, without discussing it, we found ourselves returning toward their subdivision. It wasn't intentional. It was pure instinct. I parked in their driveway, the same one where I'd learned to ride my bicycle decades ago. The front light was illuminated, despite it being mid-afternoon. Jake exited first, went to our tailgate, and I joined him. Spare key remained in its usual hiding spot, attached to the bottom of a decorative garden stone my father ordered from a catalog years earlier. Jake opened their front door. The house carried the familiar scent of strong coffee and cleaning supplies. We didn't waste time. The black gym bag went straight into their entryway, untouched and unopened. We secured the door, locked it, and returned to our minivan in complete silence. That evening, after our daughters were sleeping, I finally answered. My phone. Oh, sweetheart, we were terrified, my mother said, her voice artificially sweet. We had no idea what went wrong. I remained quiet. Is everyone safe? She persisted. More silence. Finally, she inquired, where's our bag? I allowed the question to hang unanswered for several seconds. We returned it to your house. I said, if it was so important, perhaps you should have transported it personally. There was a pause long enough for me to hear the slight catch. In her breathing, the tiny fracture that revealed she understood exactly what I meant. Don't contact us again, I said, and ended the call. I assumed that would conclude everything. I was mistaken. They appeared on a Thursday morning. No advance notice, no message, just our doorbell chiming like they were delivering flowers instead of confrontation. I recognized them before looking through the peephole. There's a particular energy that radiates through a door when it's people who believe they've committed no wrongdoing. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so they couldn't see our daughters. Robert and Linda stood together like they hadn't just nearly landed us in federal prison. My mother's smile was rehearsed, almost flawless, except it never reached her eyes. We wanted to visit, she said casually, as though this was a friendly social call. My father contributed. We hoped we could resolve this misunderstanding. I crossed my arms. Resolve what exactly? They exchanged glances. My mother eventually said, we weren't certain how much you figured out. My teeth clenched. You mean about your gym bag? Silence, which confirmed everything I suspected. You planted that in our vehicle with my children present. It's my father. Adjusted his posture. It wasn't supposed to be risky, he said calmly. Which just a way to handle our financial problems. My mother added hastily. We were desperate. You refused to help. There it was. Their standard excuse. You refused to help, as if my boundaries were acts of cruelty and their betrayal was justified retaliation. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You didn't just deceive me, I said. You endangered our lives. Your daughter, your son-in-law, your grandchildren. My mother blinked rapidly, like she wanted tears but couldn't manufacture them. We're finished, I declared. Don't call. Don't visit. You're not seeing the children. You'll change your mind, she replied quietly, with that maddening certainty. You always do. Not this time. I turned, went inside, and locked the door behind me. 4 days later, I arrived at our daughter's school for pickup. They weren't waiting. The teacher smiled like everything was normal. Oh, your parents collected them, said you arranged it. I don't recall the drive to their house. I only remember hearing my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Inside looked like a toy warehouse had erupted. Balloons, sweets, electronics still in packaging. Our daughters were ecstatic, clutching their new prizes. My parents beamed like they'd executed the perfect scheme. This isn't love, I muttered. This is manipulation. The girls didn't understand why we had to leave immediately, but I wasn't staying one more minute. As we departed, my mother called out in a musical voice, they'll return to us, they always do. That night, I told Jake we needed to relocate. Not eventually. Not when convenient, immediately. Jake didn't question me when I said we had to move. He simply agreed like he'd been considering the same thing. You mentioned Phoenix before, I said. Your company still has that position available, right? Yes, he confirmed. Transfer still possible. Then let's do it. No announcements, no farewells, just leave. And that's exactly what we did. 3 months later, we were in Arizona. New city, new schools, new routines. Jake's sister lived 30 minutes away. The type of aunt who actually appeared to help instead of create chaos. We blocked phone numbers, changed our schedules, and ensured nobody knew our location. It wasn't about escaping, it was about reclaiming tranquility. The phone occasionally rang from unknown numbers, but I let them reach voicemail. One day, a cousin left a message. If your mom says she can't find you, she's worried. I don't know. What occurred? But family is important. I deleted it without responding. Family mattered, absolutely, but only when it behaved like one. About 8 months into our new beginning, an email appeared from Tyler. The subject line was capitalized. Urgent. Please read. I almost deleted it immediately. Curiosity won. He was panicking. Terrible spelling, no punctuation, explaining. Our parents had been arrested at the Arizona border. Time, they didn't involve anyone else. Just them, a trunk filled with illegal substances, and a plan so careless it practically invited arrest. They need money for legal representation, he wrote. This is serious. You must forget the past and help. They're still your parents. I stared at my screen for a long moment, then wrote my response. I already helped them once. I won't do it again. Send. Weeks later, news came through relatives that Robert and Linda had accepted a plea agreement. 5 years each for possession, with intent to distribute and attempting to cross a controlled border. It wasn't life imprisonment, but it was sufficient to make them reflect on their choices if they were capable of reflection. As for me, I don't regret cutting them off, not for 1 second. Here in Arizona, our daughters smile more. Jake sleeps. Better, I no longer mistake guilt for love. We didn't disappear. We found freedom, and that makes all the difference. So, honestly, after everything, do you think I was too harsh or not harsh enough? I'd love to hear your perspective. Share your thoughts in the comments and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories reach. If this story resonated with you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Your support helps me continue bringing you authentic, powerful, and unforgettable stories.